Quiet suburbs of Minneapolis were shattered early this morning by a cold, calculated act of political terror. State Representative Melissa Hortman, a Democratic powerhouse and former House Speaker, along with her husband Mark, were gunned down in their Brooklyn Park home by a suspect posing as a police officer. In a related attack, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were shot multiple times, both now clinging to life after surgery. As the lone Democrat in the House to join Republicans, Hortman supported SSHF1, a bill stripping undocumented adults from eligibility for Minnesota Care, the state's low-income health insurance program. This 68 to 65 vote, with Hortman as the decisive crossover, marked a stunning departure from her party's progressive rhetoric. The Democrats decried Hortman's vote as cruel and immoral, with Representative Maria Isa Perez Vega chanting, "This ain't one Minnesota," in protest. Days before her murder, Hortman, physically shaking, defended her vote as a necessary compromise to secure a state budget in a tied 67-67 House.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
Yet, this single act of pragmatism may have sealed her fate, as whispers of retribution swirl in the wake of her assassination. The shooter, identified as 57-year-old Vance Bolter, remains at large. After engaging in a firefight with police at Hortman's home, he fled on foot, eluding capture despite a massive manhunt involving the FBI, Minnesota State Patrol, and local forces. Bolter left behind a manifesto and a target list naming Hortman, Senator John Hoffman, and dozens of other Democrats. No official motive has been confirmed, but the No Kings flyers found in Bolter's vehicle tie him directly to the raucous anti-Trump rallies planned across Minnesota and the rest of the country.
We don't have any direct links. However, there were some flyers that said No Kings.
And the plot thickens as Bolter has been identified as a 2019 appointee to the Governor's Workforce Development Board by Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination.
And as Trump's military parade marking the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary begins to roll out, the left's refusal to cancel these rallies reeks of hypocrisy and cognitive dissonance. Preaching peace while aggressively rallying against kings exposes the fractured ideology that Hortman's vote and her death have laid bare.
Captured. Vance Bolter's arrest brings an end to a nearly two-day manhunt that involved hundreds of law enforcement officers.
There's no question that this is the largest manhunt in the state's history.
He is accused of carrying out the targeted shootings that killed Democratic lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and wounding Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman and his wife over the weekend. Police say Bolter wore a mask and posed as a police officer to carry out the crime. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says appears to be politically motivated. Federal authorities identified what they believed was his car early Sunday. Inside, they uncovered a list of about 70 names, largely Democrats, including local, state, and federal lawmakers, along with abortion rights advocates and healthcare facility information.
The question was, is the manifesto and the information that we have received as their motivations. We are working diligently on that. There's certainly some indications within that, but there's not specifics enough.
The community has since reeled over the attacks on their elected leaders, leaving behind flowers, flags, and notes to the Hortmans. One read, "You were our leader through the hardest of times. Rest in power."
Good evening. After a two-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous manhunt. Spent Father's Day away from their families to deliver justice for Melissa and Mark Hortman and their children who spent this Father's Day alone. To the law enforcement who stand here and the hundreds who were involved in this, the state of Minnesota owes you a deep debt of gratitude. Thank you. You ran towards the danger and you served the state of Minnesota. This is a great example of coordination and collaboration. Multiple agencies, federal, state, and local, coordinating together in a way to protect the public and close this hunt around. Multiple agencies were there as FBI laid hands on it and Minnesota State Patrol put the handcuffs on. One man's unthinkable actions have altered the state of Minnesota. Melissa Hortman was the core of who our values were. She had a hand in so many things that happened. The building that we stand in, she helped usher through so that we could respond from the State Emergency Operations Center with the professionalism and giving the tools necessary to law enforcement to do their job. To Melissa and Mark's family, I cannot fathom your pain and the grief that you're going through. We'll take solace in the memory and the work that Melissa did, and you can rest assured that we will put every ounce of effort that the state of Minnesota has to make sure that justice is served and the individual responsible for this serves the time for the unspeakable act. State grieves with you.